morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
Well, the calves are hitting the ground and the snow is disappearing. The red-winged blackbirds are back, and life is good here in cattle country. This week, Baxter Black brings you a somewhat candid and painful confession.
There are few things more painful to watch than the coming out of a cowboy.
Really? And a ranch wife from North Dakota has the ranch wife's top 10 list in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
Or perhaps they stuck a bloater or had to pull a calf. And when you try to protest, they look at you and laugh.
Another one of the good ones from Yvonne Hollenbeck. And say, how are Canada and U.S. trade relations going?
For the flexibility to make sure Canada and Mexico during these NAFTA negotiations were not included.
Find out that one and more information about other issues on the Rangeland News and on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear horse training file. I'll take you through my first ride in 3 months on a horse that's been off all winter. And guess what? He's back. Air Personality of the Year for several years, kidney donor, and banjo picker Lewis the Big Rig McIvor with a bunch of stories about picking with country music legends.
Yes, about a verse later, all of a sudden, oh, there's the banjo. And here I am playing with Buddy Dogs.
And radio personalities along our Spirit of the West network, be warned, you may hear your name and some stories about you on this episode. The Big Rig sits in after Randy Travis sets the pace.
When he swings in the saddle, he's a real gone cat with his Spanish spurs and his buckaroo hat. Camps in an old line shack way back in the sticks. He loves to tie 'em down and burn their hide, and there ain't no rough string he can't ride. But cutting the rug is how he gets his kicks. He does the cowboy boogie, the cowboy way, the cowboy boogie. Come and tie, yippee-yippee-yi, yippee-yippee-yay. So his adios to his old cayuse and down the road to turn it loose. At an old dance hall, he cuts a gal out straight. Spins her sideways through the herd. He's bucking like he's being spurred, twisting and rocking like a bronc coming out of the gate. He does a cowboy boogie, the cowboy way, the cowboy boogie. Come and tie, yippee-yippee-yi, yippee-yippee-yay. When he swings in the saddle, he's a real gone cat with the Spanish spurs and his buckaroo hat. A true frog-walking fool, he ain't no dude. The Fred Astaire of hill and range, 2 parts cool and 1 part strange. He's the best out west at any altitude. He does the cowboy boogie, the cowboy way, the cowboy boogie. Come and tie, yippee-yippee-yi, yippee-yippee-yay. He does the cowboy boogie, the cowboy way, cowboy boogie. Come and tie, yippee-yippee-yi, yippee. Come and tie, yippee-yippee-yi, yippee. Come and tie, yippee-yippee-yi, yippee-yippee-yay.
Well, he's back. Radio personality, banjo picker, singer, and kidney donor Lewis the Big Rig McIvor. And last week we talked a lot about kidney transplants, organ donation, and this week we'll look at the broadcast business from the inside and find out more about the guy sitting across from me right now.
I know you've had many a famous cowboy sitting in this seat right here. and I am very honored to be here today as part of your program that I grew up with.
You grew up with the Spirit of the West?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
CFCW.
Right.
And we are northeast of Edmonton, up a little town called Andrew, which is just straight north of Mundare, where you get some great Staninsy sausage.
All right. Now, yeah, but I like this. Going back to your background. Now, Andrew, Alberta, is that where you were born and grew up?
No, we were like extras on a ranch during the winter time. We had our family carnival that we ran throughout the summertime, and then we'd homestead there in the winter. And my sister now has a quarter horse ranch there, where she's got one of those big riding arenas, and she trains and she, boards horses and sells and raises them. Yeah, But I, going back to the CFCW days of listening to Spirit of the West, when I was harrowing fields, spike harrows,
the kind you leave out in the winter and forget where they are. And then when the snow is down to 4 inches, you drive over them with a tractor and flattens your tire.
Sounds like you've been there, Hugh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's where I'd be listening to Spirit of the West program. I said, well, I'd love to be on radio someday like you.
So that was before your radio career had started?
Yeah. Long before, yes.
Oh.
Still just a banjo player and guitar player.
Man. Where did the name Big Rig come from? How did you get that?
Well, a lot of folks may think other things, but rigging can be like the bull ride rigging, but it's actually because I used to park my semi-truck in behind the radio station at 6th and Lansdowne. I'd come in from a week's run, I'd park in the back, and then I would do my show on the weekends, voice track and record and do it for Saturday and Sunday, and then boom, back out on the road again. You know what? Anything to get my foot in the door. And when they offered me a spot, because they knew I was trying to get a radio station going after our only country station, change the formats. Just as we were getting into that wildfire season back in 2003,
Right. And it wasn't too many years after that the Big Rig Drive Home Show was running Monday through Friday, all through the week.
I had 2 part-time jobs, and they were both dream jobs. I worked for WestJet.
That's right.
As a customer service agent.
But no, the neat thing was, though, when the PA announcement came on about WestJet Flight 623 to Calgary now, I mean, there was something distinctive about the voice that was coming over the PA system at the Kamloops Airport.
Telling people that we were going to be loading folks with purple socks first. Or
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. We'll carry on with this in a few minutes. Got a song from the great R.W. Hampton coming up, and more from the Big Rig when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West, and we have the Big Rig, Louis McIvor, sitting in this week, and I really want to get to some radio insider stuff and some stories from backstage with country music legends. But before we do that, I want to go back again to your early days. And your mom was a hero of mine. And what a legend. Tell me a little bit about her.
My mom grew up training horses, kind of like what my sister does now. But my mom specialized in trick horses, teaching horses how to do tricks. And her amazing Amazon and her made even postcards back in 1943 and up with the 2 of them and her rearing Palomino stud horse with the long flowing mane, and Amazon could do 45 different tricks. And she traveled with the carnival circuit as a sideshow with her trick horse, and that's where she met my father back in 1945. He was the foreman of a merry-go-round with 9 guys under him, and my mom was this trick horse rider, and they got together, and that's how we ended up with a family business of carnival rides. I don't know if Hugh's going to cut this out, but I want to do a shout-out to CFCW in Edmonton and the new morning guy, Greg Shannon.
Oh, good old Greg.
How you doing, Greg? Love your show and love CFCW. Like I said, long-time listener.
That's right. Well, that's the first place you heard the Spirit of the West way back when. I remember Greg Shannon when he did that syndicated show all across the country, from coast to coast. What was it? The big Top 100 country
CMT.
countdown. Yeah, and that was a hugely popular show.
And he was also a DJ at B100 when they were country.
That's right.
And they first started out, and one of their big shows, they had Alabama come into town. Alabama and the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. And I ended up being invited onto Randy Owen's bus. He's the front guy, the front singer for Alabama. Stops his bus because he saw me sitting at the exit gate behind back then it was the Riverside Coliseum. And I was playing my banjo, and I had my arm wrapped up because I had burnt it with propane, but I had still made it into the concert from Lillooet. And I was playing my banjo, and he invited me onto his bus. And Greg Shannon called me up the next day. He's like, how is it that you get an interview with Randy Owen and he doesn't talk to any radio people? Because I wasn't even in radio at the time. And he said, well, he saw that I was a fan and sitting out there, so he invited me on the bus to play some banjo for him. And then he autographed the banjo for me. And as well, he autographed an American dollar bill that I had in my pocket.
Whoa.
That I carried just in case I should meet Randy or Teddy or any of the boys at Alabama and get them to autograph this $1 American bill that I had. Because I had an original one that was signed back in 1984, and I left it in a change jar. And one of the homeless people that we took in on the carnival made off with the change jar and took that $1 bill that was in there with all their autographs on it. So he signed it, and he marked it back to 1984 on that bill that I now have as part of a plaque of an Alabama memorabilia board that I have.
Oh, for gosh sake. Alabama, what wonderful harmony. Well, we want to talk about some more well-known radio personalities, but right now, here's a song that R.W. Hampton recorded when he was still pretty much a full-time working cowboy in Texas.
It's quiet this evening on the old Canadian as I ride out alone. I'm lonely but free, just my pony and me, and the river is singing a song. Got plenty of rain, the grass is growing tall, the river is rolling along. The cattle are fat, the calves looking good, just a laying round waiting for fall. As I ride out on the point of a mesa, I survey all the beauty below. An eagle screams down to his friends on the ground, it's time to be bedding down. That old setting sun paints its colors on the mesas and on the river canyon walls. From somewhere far away, the coyote calls its mate. It's time to be heading home. The moon's a shining bright on the old Canadian as I jog down the canyon for home. I'm lonely but free, just my pony and me, a cowboy at peace with the world. I'm a cowboy at peace with the world.
That's R.W. Hampton and the Canadian River Waltz. I wonder if that would qualify as CanCon. What do you think, Larry Donahue? I love this radio reminiscing, and you think about the traditions on the CFCW morning show. Of course, it was Curly Gerlach, who had been at CJCA with Curly's Corral in the 50s in the afternoon. And that was big news in Camrose when Curly Gerlach was coming to be the morning show. Wow. And then, of course, the legendary
McLennan?
No.
Lethbridge?
No. This is early mornings. I was milking cows at my uncle's farm listening to the one and only Bev Monroe and Bev's Bunkhouse.
Yeah, Bev Monroe.
And he is still singing with the Alberta legends of country music. And he sounds more like Ray Price than Ray Price sometimes, just a great guy. And then after Bev Monroe, of course, it was Wes Montgomery. When Ched went News Talk, and Wes Montgomery did mornings with Jackie Ray, and what a wonderful combination that was. Wes was he came as sports director to Ched back in probably the late 50s, early 60s, and he replaced Brian Hall, who was doing Eskimo football games up until a year ago at the age of over 80, something like that. Brian Hall went to Toronto, and Wes Montgomery came out from Saskatchewan to do sports. And then he wound up doing mornings, and then he was the morning team with Jackie Ray, and they were just awesome. And then Jackie had, several other co-hosts, Danny Hooper. And, of course, Stella Stevens took over a few years ago, and Stella and Sean Burke were the team for quite some time, and now she's with Greg. So there's a short little history of the morning show on CFCW.
I'm starting to think that you listen to everybody except me.
But, on our Spirit of the West network, there's some Charlie Brown on AM 1140 in Calgary. Does a wonderful job. He calls me up every once in a while, and we talk about, and it's local radio, just like CFCW. You want to know what's going on in your community, you listen to these guys. And Melanie...
Is that his real name first? Will
Charlie Brown?
Charlie Brown. I've just wondered.
It's got to be, because that's what it says on his Facebook page. So it must be his real
so
name.
It's got to be true then.
And then, of course, there's dear Melanie Hepp on CKLJ in Olds, and ever since they went on the air, Melanie's been doing the morning show there. Wow. And Ann James at KZIN in Shelby. Ever since we've been on the air there, which is over 20 years, she's been doing a lot of great on-air stuff. We could go on and on. Larry Road at
I couldn't.
The Road Show up in the 100 Mile House, CKBX, and I got to apologize to the others in Swift Current and Shaunavon. Oh yeah, and then there's in KBFS in Belfouche, South Dakota. Carl, been doing that morning show for years and years, and we just have such a brotherhood of stations that carry the Spirit of the West.
Don't stop now.
But no, radio morning host, that's really been something. And,
you leave somebody out now, they're going to be upset because you've named a bunch.
Yeah. And, of course, Sharon Ballon worked with Danny Hooper for a long time. And Big Jim and Chris on Moose FM up in Fort St. John. There's just so many more. And there are more stories and surprises still to come. Next, though, it's Baxter Black and a cowboy's confession, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan with a little peek at Cowboys Coming Out. Ladies and gentlemen and followers of cowboy humor, in a moment of weakness, I, Baxter Black, have written another book. I appreciate it. Its title is Scrambled Wisdom. Almost isn't is it? Which almost makes sense. Well, our offer does make sense. Only $19.95 plus shipping. A solid gold guarantee. Call 800-654-2550. Online at BaxterBlack.com. There are few things more painful to watch than the coming out of a cowboy. I'd known Don for 25 years. He was a good ranch manager in his day and did things the cowboy way. I ran into him a while back. "What you doing now?" I asked. He sort of hemmed and hawed. "Oh, I've been doing a little day work for a feller up the road." "On a ranch?" I asked. "Not exactly." "A feed yard deal?" "Well, no." "Let me guess," I said. "You're leading tourists around the desert on a bunch of old plugs and telling them what a great cowboy you were." I laughed at my joke. He turned pale. I suddenly got embarrassed. "I was only kidding. I know you wouldn't ever—" His eyes began to well with tears. "You mean—" I asked. He nodded. I'm wrangling dudes." I glanced around nervously. "I just sort of fell into it." He snuffled and began to confess. I handed him my hanky. "I just fell into it. The grandkids were back with us when we needed the money." "Well, it's not so bad," I said, patting his shoulder. "You'll get back with the cows sometime." "No, I'm already a marked man. I've learned some yodeling tricks. They tip bigger if you tuck your pants in your boot tops and wear a stampede string. I've even started writing cowboy poetry. I go by the name Sagebrush. Surely not. I put my arm around him. Yeah, he said through the tears. I even have names for the horses. Buttermilk, Black Beauty, My Little Pony. I stopped him. They have clinics, you know. There's one in Laverne, Minnesota. Not a tourist for miles. You can get back to the basics, saddle, rope, and cow. Oh, it's no use, he said, catching his breath. It's just that I like it. They think I'm king of the cowboys. They think I'm a hero like John Wayne or Billy Crystal or Robert Redford. Why, they couldn't even pack your saddle, I snorted. I know, he said, but we're all in show business. I shook my head sadly. Sorry, old pal. Well, I'll see you. I gotta go make some promo spots for my next appearance at the Big Western Art Festival and Boot and Spur Show. Take care, amigo.
Out where a friend is a friend.
This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan. Thanks for listening.
Come and see the largest selection of well-broke horses in Western Canada at the 5th Annual Top Gun Horse Sale. April 14th, high noon, at the Kelnash Event Center, Ponoka, Alberta. You can preview the horses Friday, April 13th at 4 p.m., and they start coming through the ring Saturday, April 14th at high noon. Horses for ranch work, team penning, rope and trail riding, barrels, mounted shooting, and kids' horses. Every type of horse you might be looking for, including loads of ranch horses. Every horse will be ridden, driven, or led into the ring. Rain or shine, everything's inside. For information and a look at the horses, see TopGunHorseSales.com or call Jordan Dodds, 403-783-0246. Come and be part of the Top Cut Speckle Park Sale Tuesday, April 3rd at 1 p.m. at Dryland Trading Corp in Veteran, Alberta, offering registered yearling bulls, purebred heifers, commercial heifer packages, embryo and semen lots. This quality group of cattle offered by Unlimited Spots, Lair Ranching, Movin' Spots, C Speckles, DAM Dots Ranch. Check out the catalog online at topcutspeckledpark.com or Facebook. Complimentary Speckled Park beef on a bun on sale day. Contact Dustin for more information at 306-228-1498. Speckled Park, the only breed of beef cattle totally developed in Canada. And me a great sale. Well, for 2 programs this month, my guest was Rhonda Sedgwick Stearns, and we talked at length about her late husband, Bill Stearns. And here's the song that T.J. Casey and Jim Reeder wrote in Bill's honor, sung here by Jim.
It was a Little Britches rodeo in 1963. He won his first gold buckle there. It was quite a sight to see as he made his final victory lap. Well, I heard his mama say, let's get on home, we got chores to do, best be on our way. He said, just one more time around that big old ring, open up the chute and let her go, let me ride again. Oh, the popping of the leather and the whining of those spurs, I'm reaching for the sky, oh, let me ride just one more time. He started out as a young man riding broncs to win. Remember those high school finals? It was the first time that he'd been. With only one more horse to go to be Rookie of the Year, he grinned and nodded for the gate. Here's all that I could hear. He said, just one more time around that big old ring, open up the chute and let her go, let me ride again. Oh, the popping of the leather and the whining of those spurs. I'm reaching for the sky, oh let me ride just one more time. Well, he was old and bent and crippled up. He'd been around the horn, this old bronc stomping cowboy, from the day that he was born. He'd won a few gold buckles that he kept in a special place. When I asked, would you do it all again? Well, that smile just lit up his face. He said, just one more time around that big old ring. Open up the chute and let her go. Let me ride again. Oh, the puffing of the leather and the whining of those spurs. I'm reaching for the sky. Oh, let me ride just one more time. So when I'm saddled up and feeling fine, let me ride just one more time.
Now the news of the Rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
At the top of page 1, it says, you might be wondering what steel and aluminum has to do with cattle production. Well, maybe this report from Rod Bain with U.S. Agricultural Secretary Sonny Perdue might explain it.
Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue admits he felt like many in the farm sector as they awaited President Donald Trump's recent announcement.
I was very anxious about the announced aluminum steel tariffs as far as it relates to agriculture, and still am to some degree.
Secretary Perdue, talking to reporters in North Dakota, says, however, in terms of the president's announcement of a 25% tariff on steel imports and 10% tariff on aluminum imports and flexibilities built in for specific nations.
I'm grateful, frankly, and we've worked for the flexibility to make sure Canada and Mexico during these NAFTA negotiations were not included, as well as another door to say, EU, come let's talk.
As well as individual Asian countries. And while some ag interests wonder about retaliatory tariffs against U.S. farm and food exports, the Secretary points to an additional concern.
Everything you do with agriculture touches steel. All this equipment, and from the cost standpoint of production, is one threat. We have to be concerned about that.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
The effects of this winter's cold temperatures are starting to become evident as cattle in Manitoba seem to be showing up at auctions weighing slightly more than last year. Cattle eat well in the cold and they eat more when it's cold, says Alan Monroe of Killarney Auction Market, and he adds that last winter's was difficult on the animals due to all the blowing snow and the wind. If cattle are uncomfortable and trying to keep out of the wind, they don't eat, he said. And here's a good quote from a recent issue of Alberta Beef. A farmer or a rancher just doesn't have time to sit on the phone waiting for government to answer questions or fill out piles of confusing paperwork in the middle of calving. 64% of all farmers and ranchers in Canada say their business has been negatively affected by delays caused by red tape. Well, April the 6th is the next regular sale at the BC Livestock Co-op in Vanderhoof, and next Kamloops sale is April the 10th. Lots of special bull sales coming up, and you can get all the info at bclivestock.bc.ca. And that's where you can see some of the horses already consigned for the spring horse sale. That's April 27th at the Kamloops Yards. Meanwhile, at the Innisfail Auction Market, long-time family-owned and operated business that does so much for that community. They have regular cattle sales every Wednesday. Butcher cows and bulls start selling at 9 a.m. Calves and yearlings after that. Bred cows start around noon, and they've got lots of special sales coming up as well. You can see Innisfail Auction Market for all the details, or give them a call at 1-800-710-3166. And I guess that takes us down to the final item. This one comes from our pal Ken Overcast in Chinook, Montana. And Ken says that a ranch wife with a house full of kids told him her life was like baling hay with a small square baler and no twine. You get to the end of the field, look back, and you gotta do it all over again. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, a look at my first ride after more than 3 months on a horse that hasn't really been touched since November. And more stories from the big rig and something special for fans of Pete Hicks when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. The Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File is coming right up, and I'll take you through a ride I had last week. First one in 3.5 months on a horse that hadn't been ridden since early November. First, though, the 17th annual Spirit of the West Cruise will be something unforgettable. My wife Billy and I will be hosting a big group of ranchers, farmers, horse and cattle folks, and Spirit of the West listeners for a trip I know many of you have had on your bucket list for a long time. September 16th, 2018, we will sail out of Quebec City and cruise Canada's maritime provinces in all the glory of the fall colors, including stops in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Sydney and Halifax, Nova Scotia, St. John, New Brunswick and the Bay of Fundy, Bar Harbor, Maine, Boston, Portland, Maine, and Cape Liberty, New Jersey, with an optional stay in New York City. Now, just for the Spirit of the West group, we have a tour of a cattle operation in Nova Scotia. We'll have all our great Western music concerts and sing-alongs, and we'll be swapping lots of ranching stories. And we'll have a lot of special activities just for our group. You'll find more details on the cruise section of our website at hugh-mclennan.com and on our cruise Facebook page, and you can always call the toll-free number 1-800-530-0131.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
Urban Tack and Western Wear is Canada's largest Western retailer with over 60,000 square feet of everything Western. This Western wonderland has an endless variety of tack, boots, jeans, and outerwear with new items arriving daily. With over 1,000 saddles to choose from, you're bound to say Urban's is totally a unique place to shop. The kids will love the styles. You love the quality. Urban Tack and Western Wear off exit 305 on Highway 2 by Crossfield, open 7 days a week, online at urbans.ca. Well, this is a day I had been waiting for. The doctor said, you can try getting on a horse, but make sure it's at least 3 months after your transplant. And 3 months was up the other day. The sun was shining, the sky was blue, and the snow was not much more than 3 feet deep. And my good mare Cody was last ridden on about November the 19th, and I wondered how we'd both make out. Well, here's how it went. I mainly wanted to see if I could throw my saddle on her and, if possible, maybe climb into it. Well, that saddle sure gained some weight since November, but after a good brushing, I swung it on her and cinched it up, and I led her to a spot where I'd plowed enough snow to do a little groundwork and check her out. And I might not have even needed to. She jumped once when a big pile of snow slid off the tin roof of the hay shed, but settled right back down. Now here's where I cheated a little bit. I put my favorite bozal on her and led her to where I'd set a bale of hay on the ground. She stood nicely while I stepped up onto the bale, and I thought, well, okay, I'm here. I'll just try putting my left foot in the stirrup. And I ignored those thoughts that creep into your head, like, what if you can't get your leg over? What if it's painful? What if she bolts and steps away and you hit the ground? Well, that was very unlikely, and minutes later, there I sat, and Cody waited patiently till I cued her to walk ahead. And that's when I realized how valuable a solid connection is with your horse. I started her as a 3-year-old, just bought her at a sale, and she'd pretty well been untouched. I have used her mainly for ranch work, but we've made a lot of miles together, and we read each other pretty well. Now, I'd only planned to ride a few little circles in the arena, but it felt so good that before long we were out the gate and trotting up the road. And Billy was there with the camera, and you might be able to see some of the shots she took on our Facebook page. Well, after about an hour, I took my rope down and I threw about 15 practice loops at a bale because I've already got an invitation to drag calves at a branding next month. Now, this was a kind of a personal account, but there is a point here, I guess. I think there is, and it would probably be this. I did have some lingering doubts in the back of my mind. Like, what if I can't do this? What if my riding days are done? Now, I don't know why those thoughts happen, but the dominant thoughts were that this horse and I understand each other, and I visualized her just being great. And, it was even better than I imagined. And for Irvin Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. Our horses are sure looking great, and I think a lot of it has to do with that daily feeding of Hoffman's horse ration that they get. You can find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. Come and see the largest selection of well-broke horses in Western Canada at the 5th Annual Top Gun Horse Sale. April 14th, high noon, at the Kelnash Event Center, Ponoka, Alberta. You can preview the horses Friday, April 13th at 4 p.m., and they start coming through the ring Saturday, April 14th at high noon. Horses for ranch work, team penning, rope and trail riding, barrels, mounted shooting, and kids' horses. Every type of horse you might be looking for, including loads of ranch horses. Every horse will be ridden, driven, or led into the ring. Rain or shine, everything's inside. For information and a look at the horses, see TopGunHorseSales.com or call Jordan Dodds, 403-783-0246. Well, Lewis, the big rig McIvor, still sitting here in the guest chair at the Spirit of the West World Broadcast Center. And, well, before I let you go, I just have a few more questions for you. For example, most embarrassing moment in your radio career?
Oh, my goodness. When I did a live caller and she dropped the F-bomb.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no 3-second delay?
No, it was live. And normally you shouldn't do contests live. But for some reason it was like, got a caller, got to go right to the phone.
Yeah.
And it was a question about Australia and when somebody first took rabbits there. And the question was, well, that was back in 18-something. So how many rabbits are in Australia now? And this one lady said that that's a lot of blanking bunnies.
Oh, dear.
And I said to her, you know we're live, don't you? And she's like, she could just hear,
most embarrassing moment ever on stage or...
I was playing with Buddy Knox.
Really?
One time on stage.
Buddy Knox in the Rhythm Orchids?
Down in Estevan, Saskatchewan.
You're kidding.
It was a honky-tonk saloon. And he was in there, the party doll. Come along to be my party doll. For the first verse, I was playing banjo with the band, and it wasn't even on. I thought it was, but it
sounded great to you.
It sounded great, and I had it well rehearsed, and I couldn't hear myself in the monitor, but I thought, it's just the monitor.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, about a verse later, all of a sudden, there's the banjo.
Oh, man.
And here I am playing with Buddy Knox. It was like,
gee.
He just kind of shrugged it off. Like, I'm sure he's seen other worse stuff happen.
Oh, he could tell some stories, I guess. Man, what a great guy. Party Doll and... the
late, great Buddy Knox.
Hula Love. Gosh, there were some guitar licks in those songs that were just so... That Party Doll guitar lick and that chorus, great. He was just a great guy. He was a lieutenant in the U.S. Army when he was drafted, not long after Party Doll came out. And he had that kind of character that he made it to lieutenant pretty quickly.
Wow.
What other great names have you performed with and played for?
Performed with Don Ho.
Really?
1982.
In Honolulu?
In Honolulu. It was a New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Got to play Old Lang Syne.
Well, you've already had an amazing career in the broadcast business, and I expect that there are more amazing things to come.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
You know what? No, wait a second. It's like, I'm just happy to be here. I'm kind of like pinching myself because it's like, I'm on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and it's something like you are one of the main reasons I got into radio.
But listen, partner, thank you so much for coming up and sitting in and making this so much fun. Gosh sake,
this is a dream come true for me.
Oh, gosh.
And it's a great honor to have you carrying around my left kidney.
Oh, I'll tell you, it's a huge responsibility, and I will look after it as well as I possibly can. Now, in honor of the big rig, I thought a good old truck driving song would be appropriate, and there are lots of them that would fit. 18-Wheeler by Alabama came to mind, but I'd like to spin this one. Now, we've been talking about a lot of great radio on-air folks, and this is a guy who has dedicated his entire career to promoting country music every way he could. And a lot of folks might not know that he's a fine songwriter and country singer himself. But he keeps a bit of a low profile. Anyway, here's a truckin' song from our dear friend Pete Hicks.
All you big and burly men who roll the trucks along, better listen, you'll be thankful when you hear my song. You've really got it made if you're hauling goods any place on earth but those Haynesville woods. It's a stretch of road up north in Maine that's never, ever, ever seen a smile. If they buried all the truckers lost in them woods, there'd be a tombstone every mile. Count 'em off, there'd be a tombstone every mile. When you're loaded with potatoes and you're headed down, you gotta drive the woods to get to Boston town. When it's winter up in Maine, better check it over twice. That Haynesville road's just a ribbon of ice. It's a stretch of road up north in Maine that's never, ever, ever seen a smile. If they buried all the truckers lost in them woods, there'd be a tombstone every mile. Count 'em off, there'd be a tombstone every mile. When you're talking to a trucker that's been hauling goods down that stretch of road in Maine they call the Haynesville Woods, he'll tell you that dying and going down below won't be half as bad as driving on that road of ice and snow. It's a stretch of road up north in Maine that's never, ever, ever seen a smile. If they buried all the truckers lost in them woods, there'd be a tombstone every mile. Count 'em off, there'd be a tombstone every mile.
Dick Curlis, of course, had the big hit version of that, and that was Pete Hicks. And by the way, he will be with the Alberta Legends of Country Music at the Wetaskiwin Memorial Hall April 7th, and the Legends will also be at Heritage Park, Stony Plain. That's the home of the Stony Plain Cowboy Gathering. They'll be there April 21st, and the Old McDonald's Music Festival at Erskine, Alberta, Saturday, September the 8th. And guess what? I'll be there with the Western Spirit Band, and we'll be on stage right after the Legends. Tough act to follow, but we'll give it our best shot. Tickets are available by calling 403-742-6603. And there's something special for this week's Classic Song of the West. A young singer who was the winner of the Rising Star competition at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival a few years back has just auditioned for American Idol. You'll hear her along with the Ranch Wife's Top 10 list when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. This week's classic Western song is a competition of the Polish composer Tekla Bodrzewska-Baranowska, or something like that. Actually, he was born in 1834, died in 1861. But the song that he wrote was published in 1856 in Warsaw. And then, as a supplement to a magazine in Paris in 1859, it was originally written as a medium difficulty short piano piece for intermediate piano students. Doesn't sound like a Western song, does it? But wait, Bob Wills heard this song played on a fiddle while he was a barber in Roy, New Mexico, and he arranged the piece in Western swing style. And Wills first recorded it as an instrumental in 1935, and then it quickly became one of his signature dance tunes, and he wrote a set of lyrics for it and recorded it again in 1941 with the vocal by Tommy Duncan. It's a real favorite on the dance floor of many a Western town, and to sing it, here's a gal who is going places. She was the winner of the Rising Star competition at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival a few years back, and she is now a contestant on American Idol, and by the time you hear this, her audition will be telecast, but at this point, we don't know how she did, but we're wishing her the best. With Bob Wills' Maiden's Prayer, here's Kristen Harris.
Twilight falls, evening shadows find there 'neath the stars a maiden so fair divine, moon on high seems to see her there, and in her eyes is a light shining ever so bright. She whispers a silent prayer. Every word reveals her aching, broken heart, broken by fate that kept them so far apart. Lonely there she kneels as she tells the Lord above, in her arms he belongs, and her prayer is a song, an unending song of love. Lord, take his hand, and I know that he's all right. Shield him from harm and lead him through the night. Then by her side, her love was standing there, and they spoke not a word, for someone had heard and answered a maiden's prayer.
And now in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight, North Dakota ranch wife Yvonne Hollenbeck and her top 10 list.
I don't know if Letterman's done it. We can't stay up that late. But I made a list of top 10 things that all ranch women hate. Now, I'm sure I've missed a lot of things, and you could add some more, but these are some that top the list that most ranch wives abhor. 10 is when a minute can turn into half a day, and the meal you planned is ruined as a result of the delay. 9 is dirty laundry from the socks up to their caps that is filthy, wet, and sticky as a result of a prolapse. Or perhaps they stuck a bloater or had to pull a calf, and when you try to protest, they look at you and laugh. Then here comes checking pastures, and you cannot shut a gate, 'cause someone made it way too tight. That ends up number 8. 7's waiting dinner and trying to keep it hot. When telling you they won't be there is something they forgot, 'cause they were helping neighbors. It was sure an oversight. So dried up meat and vegetables is what they'll eat tonight. 6 is backing trailers, the great big gooseneck kind. And 5 is when the truck hooked on has gears you cannot find. 4 is windy salesmen that always stop at noon, and leaving they inform you they'll be coming back real soon. 3 is pulling tractors when it's cold and they won't start, and why you have agreed to help just proves you're none too smart. To understand hand signals is what ends up number 2. It's tied with pulling pickup trucks that stuck because of you. Undoubtedly, the number 1 thing every woman hates is when they're sorting cattle and her job is on the gate. He hollers, "Hold that black one," and they're all black in the pen. And that is just the start of where your sorting woes begin. Now, I'm sure there's lots more stressful things that I have probably missed, but there you have it, black and white, the ranch wife's top 10 list.
Well, thank you so much for making the ride this week, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And again, thanks to our great support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. And you know, if you need tractor parts, any make, any year, just check out Mark's page at bctractorparts.com. And the next issue of Canadian Cowboy Country should be on the way now. You can pick it up at your favorite newsstand or just call 1-800-943-7336. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.